before we get specifically to Pesach, we'll discuss some Inyani Kashrus related to Pesach and get into some Pesach Inyanim. So there's actually, I think it's a pasuk actually at the end of this week's Parasha Shmini. It talks about not eating bugs and shratzim, and the Torah says v'tamtem bo. And the Gemara in Yuma points out it's missing the aleph in the word and in Mesa. And the Gemara in Yuma learns mikan shavera mitantam esalei. From here we see how serious eating kosher is. That eating non-kosher causes some type of spiritual contamination. It's mitamtem esalev. And in fact, many of the poskim take this Gemara very seriously. A lot of the Pri Chadash, the Kaf HaChaim, others point out, how they know it I'm not sure, but they all point out that many kids who rebel later in life, it's because against Judaism, it's because they were mitamtem esalev. They ate non-kosher during in the younger years. So what's interesting Gemara in Chulin, the Gemara in Chulin Daf Hey, it's a story in Melachim Aleph of Eliyahu Hanavi. The Gemara talks about, the Navi talks about the story when Eliyahu was on the run and he had nowhere to eat, he was starving, there was a famine, so the ravens came and they gave him food. They gave him bread and other things. The Gemara wants to know where did he get his food? Pretty much they got it from the kitchen of Achav or Ovdei Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says, Eliyahu, how could he eat from the Ovdei Avodah Zarah? What about kosher? So the Gemara says, Al pi dibor shani. So what does that mean, Al pi dibor shani? And when God tells you to do it, you do it. But what does that mean? So that's a machlokes rishonim. Rashi and Tosas on one hand, and the Ritva and others on the other hand. What does it mean, al pi dibor shani? Does it mean that he actually ate non-kosher? So that's the opinion of Rashi and Tosas. So yeah, he ate non-kosher, but obviously his life is in danger. We all know it's not one of the three things one has to give up your life for. And in the case of famine, there was no food. And maybe it was even a mitzvah to eat non-kosher. I guess he's going with the. I'm just pointing out parenthetically. Apparently, he must be going with the Rambam Shita, not the Bali Tosfos, in a different machlokas. We know for the three things you have to give up your life for. You have a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, but there's a machlokas Rishonim, the Rambam versus Tosfos. What happens if it's not the big three, but they want you to Machal Shabbos, but not for Hanas. Not for Hanas Aspa. If the guy's hungry and he wants you to barbecue a steak, that's not something to give up your life for. But let's say he's doing it la'avir al adas. So then you don't have to give up your life, but can you? Again, I'm not getting into Shas Hashma, but a specific case where the guy is doing it. So the Rambam Shita is, in a case where you don't have to give up your life, it's also to give up your life. In other words, if there's no chiyuv to go al Kiddush Hashem, then you have a chiyuv of a chay bahem, and that's it. And Tosfos right, again, whatever the details of the point is where you have an option to give up your life, you don't have to. Tosfos right, you never have to do an Aveira. If you just can't come to eat the Tarfis, you can't come to Machal Shabbos, you have the option. You're definitely not obligated. So I'm saying, so Eliyahu seems to be going with the Rambam here, that he took the choice of, according to Tosfos, he's only following Tosfos. Like Tosfos says he has the option, so he's following Tosfos. He ate kosher, he ate non-kosher, but so what he's allowed to. You have a question? No, in terms, that Tosfos in general, again, whatever the details are, in a case where you're not mechuyev in Kiddush Hashem, then you have a right to be moser.
Yeah, but I mean, the question is, it's minhag chassidus, and you have a question on Eliyahu, but if it's just you have the right, so.
It's not I'm just saying it's. I'm just bringing the machlokas. I'm saying it tongue in cheek. Obviously, I'm not saying he was thinking about the machlokas Rambam and Tosfos didn't happen yet. What I'm saying but based on his decision, he definitely felt there was an option, and he chose to eat the food. So it's not he follows both shitas, because the Rambam says you have to eat, and Tosfos says you can eat. So
what's the issue with
the Tosfos is where?
In Chulin. But the Tosfos is I think it's in Sanhedrin or Avodah Zarah after the Tosfos by giving up his life. The Tosfos over here, we're talking about in Chulin is Daf Hey, but the Tosfos about giving up your life, it's either, or it could be both, it's either Sanhedrin or I think in Avodah Zarah.
Sanhedrin Ayin Dalet.
Okay, yeah, by the story of Esther and that.
Ayin Dalet, I'm pretty sure it's Ayin Dalet.
Yeah, by Esther, by
Same place,
yeah,
same.
yeah.
It's also in Ksubas.
Is the issue only Kashrus, if he's, or is it Avodah Zarah?
But it means you want to, Pash, there's an issue to eat for all the Avodah Zarah, it's not an issue of Avodah Zarah. I assume it's an issue, it's a Kashrus issue, not an Avodah. It wasn't that the food was Avodah Zarah, we're just saying, the person, no, that's not, it's an interesting point, but the Gemara is assuming it's just a Kashrus issue. It's nothing to do with Avodah Zarah.
The fact that it brings Achav as the example, it doesn't say Stam, it says Achav.
Right, but that was the case. I mean, that was the Mitzvah. Well, right, I guess it didn't have to bring Eliyahu down. It could have brought some other example, right? But Pashas, it's not about a Zara issue. It's a din and.
This is when Eliyahu ran away from the devil.
When Eliyahu with the famine, so he had his life was in danger. He was running around, and the raven was keeping him, giving him, bringing him food. They say from Achav's kitchen. So the Kasha is within Achav's kitchen. He doesn't eat kosher, or presumably not. So the Torah says, so Al Pi Dibur Shani, that's it, kosher. God says you can eat treif, you eat treif.
The amazing thing is that what you're describing happened right after the Hashem Hu Elokim, they all shouted Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem Hu Elokim on
by the Baal.
Carmel.
Yeah.
And immediately after that, he has to run for his life. Very, very surprising.
That's not strange because he went to Yehuda. He was far away from Achav. That's what he was really, that was the case over there. He wasn't anywhere near
right. That's what I was.
He was down in Yehuda because he ran away from the Zebel.
I had the Kasha also, but that's the Mitzvah. Yeah, but I'm saying I wasn't sure in terms of that either. But that's the case. But the really Achav is, for our purposes, not important if it's Achav or not. But that's what the Gemara brings down. The point was that. Did Eliyahu eat non-kosher or not? Whether it was Achav or someone else isn't relevant to our discussion. It's, but so Ritva says, what do you mean, Chas v'sholom? How could you say Eliyahu ate non-kosher? Navi Muksak, no way. He definitely Al Pi Dibur Shani, God worked it out for him. I mean, that it wasn't kosher. However, the kashrus was however, God maintained the kosher kitchen in Achav's home, whatever the case was. Al Pi Dibur Shani is. We made sure to bring him kosher food.
Why would I think Achav didn't have a kosher kitchen? Why would I think that?
Or if he...
Why not?
Well, no, that's maybe that's why they bring in that he was an old day Avodah Zarah.
That's different.
No, that's why, but an old day Zarah,
Even then, he still have a kosher kitchen.
No, right, but I'm saying is that's what...
The Gemara discusses that in Chulin, in connection with Yehoshaphat's visit.
Yeah.
As to how Yehoshaphat managed to...
Yeah, but I think
to eat kosher.
But Yehoshaphat didn't eat Achav's food.
Right.
That's what the Gemara in Chulin says.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he didn't, and Eliyahu did, so that's the question. So therefore, you have a major machlokas rishonim on did Eliyahu eat treif food or not. So this issue, the Toast and Rashi on one hand, who said that Eliyahu ate treif, versus the Ritva, and I think the Masudas David over there. What's the issue here? What's in the Kudas HaMachlokas, whether he ate treif or not? So it seems to be come back to a more fundamental question. It's a Drashas Haran, and he talks about in general, it's many in the drashas. He talks about a lot of good things, and he talks about the laws of the Torah that generally quote them. We're not talking to individuals per se. That the Torah sets up things in general rules. We have Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, and Machlokesim, and we go with Rov, and he goes through the different column. So he points out we don't go on an individual basis. That the Torah is not concerned on an individual basis. You can't worry about every specific. I mean, obviously you have to worry about it, but the Torah, when they give rules, they're not going into every hypothetical. You have to take the rules and figure out. You have to learn how to navigate the system. But so in terms of, obviously, as long as you're within the box. I think there was a book I read years ago. That was between, I forget the name of it. Maybe one of you will know it. It was a dialogue between the Reform rabbi and an Orthodox rabbi. One world, two persons, one world. I forget the name of it. But so we have many interesting discussions back and forth. There's one mashal I just like that stuck in my head. I remember him saying that, let's say it's a game of chess. We all know how to play chess, at least I do, or I used to. Basically, the rooks move some way, bishops, kings, there's certain rules to the game. However, let's say someone starts moving the bishop like a queen, starts moving the king like a pawn, so it's a very interesting game, but it's no longer chess anymore. As long as you're within the box, so there's a lot of differences within the laws, but you have to be within the system. So the Ran goes to many different rules and systems. We're not catering to individuals. And when the Ran's talking about Kashrus, he points out that let's say someone has to eat, in a case where someone has to eat non-kosher, does it cause timtum halev? Like the Gemara says, Mikan Shavei Ritantam es halev. So the Ran writes no. If a person has to eat, whether it's our case of Pikuach Nefesh or the case of Eliyahu, whatever the case may be, the Ran writes there is no timtum halev. Apparently, according to the Ran, it's the Isser of Macholas Asuras that creates the tim, not the mere fact of eating the Macholas Asuras, but if you're eating it, the Torah is Isser, so then it's Asur. This reminded me, within the system, reminded me of a story with the Ragachover. The Ragachover going, he was, so we all know, we're familiar with the Gemara, the Medrash, that our Bashert is picked out 40 days before, etc. So the Ramah brings down a minute that you pay it's not just a good idea, the Ramah brings down you should pay the Shadchan when they set you up. And that's why I think the Pesah Rabbi writes, Shadchan stands for Sheker, Dover, Kesef, Nosein. If you don't have the Kesef, Nosein, you're just left with the Shindal or the shade. You don't want to start off your marriage that way. But either way, so the Ragash have an interesting minute. He used to give money to the Shadchan even when they set them up. Because he says that must have been part of the 40 days. They are supposed to go out with it, not only on the result, but he used to pay the Shadchan on every day, apparently. So one day the Ragashava comes home and he tells his father, no Shadchan's money. He says, why not? He says, this one couldn't even been a Havamina. I'm sure we all had some of those, but so either way, there's a certain system, and therefore you follow. So the Ran sheet is that it's the Isser of Macholas Asuras that creates the Timtum Halev. And interesting, the Abar Benel, who's not known for his Koach HaPsak, he's known as a Mefarish on Tanakh, etc. Very interesting, a lot of interesting sheets on different things. He writes not like the Ran. He writes that basically poison is poison. What's the difference why you're eating the poison? I drank the poison because I thought it was Coke, or it doesn't make, once it gets into your system, it's going to cause harm. So he says it doesn't make a difference why you eat the non-kosher. You might even have a mitzvah to eat it, but the bottom line is you have to be prepared for the timtum halev. You have to be able to fight off whatever you have to do. So it's a machlok. It seems to be a machlokes the Ran and the Abar Benel, when someone eats non-kosher, when you're allowed to, when it's mutter to eat non-kosher, does it create timtum halev? The Ran seems to say no. The Abar Benel seems to say yes.
Doesn't the Ran make more sense? Because a lot of the halachas of kashrus, you could end up eating non-kosher and it's kosher, like batal b'shishim or a roll. That piece of meat may end up to from the non-kosher butcher, but
that will get to, but
things.
But we'll see, the bitul b'rov might not be, because the question is what's pshat in rov and bitul b'shishim. I'm going to get to that point, but that's not so simple. But I agree. I'm going to give you. A lot of times we are eating. We're eating bugs all the time, but we'll come to that. But
soldiers in battle are allowed to eat treifel. Kodol also.
Yeah.
So that would be an afkamina. Would that?
But there's also chagli the kazeri. That could also be right. Whether that's the same halacha or not, in terms of fighting a war in Eretz Yisrael and all that. So right, that could be similar to that. I'll come to that. But that could be a separate. I mean, you're right. There are many cases you're allowed to eat. It seems strange that you permit well, that's the question. Would it be? Could you, on one hand, permit non-kosher, on the other hand, say, well, I'm permitting it, but it's only a dispensation, and and even among the big picture, you have to do it, but it doesn't mean if it's poison, it's poison. That's also I'm going to come to it. So interesting. You would have thought that Barbanel is not known for his koach hapsaf. So I would have thought that the poskim would be going with the Shitas Haran, yet they don't mention either by name, but if you go through certain of the famous tshuvas, they seem to be concerned with the Abarbanel. There's a famous tshuva of the Chasim Sofer. I think it was in Vienna. It was a school, it was this famous school for the special kids, might have been a shota, and the case was to the Chasim Sofer, my kid has to go to this school because it's a special needs, and the only problem is...
The question was, should he go to school and then have to eat, or should he not go to school? I think that's how
right, so the question
was.
Yeah, so the question, right, we'll see from the answer, that was the question. So, and it was a top school, and the only school this kid could become better is, I guess it was a sleepaway school, and they had strict rules, you couldn't bring kosher food in, and either you had to eat the non-kosher food, or this don't go to school. So the Chasim Sofer goes, he has a whole discussion, even though he says Me'ikar Hadin, he can't say it's Usher, because Makam Chol, let's say, goes through, but the bottom line, he has a very strong ending. He says, Mutav she'yashota kol yamav, better to be a shota your whole life than to ingest macholas asura. So, number one, in the case where it's even mutter and stays, he's clearly not working with the Ran. He seems to be very concerned with Timtim Halev, even though, and Ramosha also has a similar where he also says Me'ikar Adin, it's clearly mutter to do, but he throws, a lot of the poskim throw in this concept of Timtim Halev, seeming to go with the Abarbanel. And again, Me'ikar Adin, it seems to be like the Ran.
Why? What's the meaning that it's mutter?
No, it's
not because of nefesh. So what is it?
Maybe it is in terms of someone being. It depends how, what's the status. Number one, a shota might be exempt from it.
Isn't that Chasim Sofer noted for his argument because it was a cotton, and he said that it's usher to be machal or cotton. He says you're not being machal or cotton in this situation. Therefore, there's no. Isn't that what he's?
Yeah, it's the same true, but he goes in.
So therefore, he's noted for the argument that heter. You're right. It was an interesting thing where he's quoted to give this argument to heter that if you put a cotton in a school like that, you aren't over being machal and suras.
Because you're not.
But then he ends up.
Right, the whole.
Anyways.
But it's right, which is the whole story in Yavam. It's about being machal, giving treifas to your kid in terms of. The whole question on Yom Kippur, they discuss how could you feed your kid then. There's a difference in it's a gavra, it's a chefsa, but right after so he concludes again. So even what's the status of a shot is a danger. Maybe it is a because in other words that gets into, but he has a whole discussion going back where Me'ikar Adin, it's mutter, that's the only way for the kid to become. You would argue maybe. You would think to let the kid eat tray for a couple of days, years, and then become normal and do all mitzvahs. And he said, Me'ikar Adin, he can't say you can, but he, again, whether it's halach l'mais or not, but he's writing strong. Again, maybe...
Well, you just said interesting. The argument of Shabbos, you're specifically saying it's not similar to the argument for Shabbos.
Yeah, which is amazing also, which I'll get to, because you'll see from Iran that it seems it's better to be Machal Shabbos when they get to that also, right. Which is amazing in its own right. And all because of seemingly because of some mystical concept of Timtim Halev, which in terms of that. So they point out so it seems to be working. It's the whole Machlokas Iran and the Abarbanel. There's an unbelievable Ramah. The Ramah brings down in Shulchan Aruch. He says nursing women should be very extra cautious, extra careful, that's not to ingest any macholas asuras.
Or a nursemaid, nursemaid, the same.
Right, in terms of anyone who they're gonna. So the question is like, what's the Rama getting at? So a nursing woman has to eat kosher the same way I have to eat kosher. Even if I'm not a nurse, I have a chiyuv of kosher. What's the Rama talking about? So I could say the Mefarshim don't say this. I have a simple choice which I see is I know that there are many parents, whether mothers or fathers, where they're not so worried about ingesting treif themselves, but if you tell them it's going to affect their kid, then they're more machmir. But that's what I say Pshat in the Ramah is, but that's not what the Mefarshim say. The Shach and Taz say something else. They say the unbelievable thing. You know what we're talking about? We're talking about a woman that they're talking about a case where it's sakanas nefashos, that the woman has to eat treif. So, and in fact, not only can she has to, but the Ramah is writing in a case where a woman, for every scenario, she should not make sure she doesn't nurse her child. That's how the shach and taz. In the case where it's a pikuach nefesh, a woman has to eat non-kosher to stay alive or for health. Afal pikain, that's what it means. Again, it seems to timtum alev. It seems to be working again with this abar benel. And in fact, the unbelievable Rav, this is what you were alluding to. There's at the end of Yuma, the Gemara has a klal that, let's say, someone has to, Kippur is talking about, but it applies anytime. Ma'achilin also kal tzchil. We have a general rule. You do the lesser aveira. Like if you could do a choice between doing a quote-unquote aveira kala or less chomer, of course the trick is how you determine which one is more. Usually the onus is usually a good criteria to start with. But basically that's the klal, ma'achino so kal tzchila. So the question is, so what happens, so the Ran in the end of Yuma talks about what happens in a case where a person's in the hospital or something equivalent, and the choice is, it's Shabbos, so they only have tray food now. Should they eat the tray food in wherever, the home, the hospital, wherever they are, or should they, machal Shabbos, do shchita, and then eat kosher food? So the Ran writes, so, even though Pashtus, I would have said, Kal Chila, Shabbos is an Issa Skila, curries is more Chamor than eating non-kosher. So the Ran writes, better to do the Shchita on Shabbos than to eat the non-kosher. Well, his reason is because he says, because the Shchita is a one-time Aveira, but every Kazayis you eat, every time you eat, it's another Aveira. But the Ran says better to do the, and the Hagos Mordechai agrees with the Ran, but he says, you know why you have to do the Shchita, you can't have, because if you eat the treif, it's going to cause Timtum Halev. Apparently Chilul Shabbos doesn't, but eating treif causes Timtum Halev, and therefore, he says it's better to, they both agree to eating the kosher, but for different reasons. So, first and foremost, it seems it's the Ran L'Shitason. The Ran who holds you can't say it's Timtum Alev, because according to Ran, it's mutter in this case. So he has to come on to a different reason that you have to wait, since it's every Kazayas a tray versus a one-time, so he views that as Kal Tzchila. But according to Hagos Mordechai, he's working with the Abar Benel, so he seems to take the Timtum Halev approach. So we see that even though, strictly speaking, the Ran's a postek, the Abar Benel's not, but many poskim seem to be very concerned, again, maybe as a chumrah, because many of them say Meikar Adin, it's mutter, but they're all concerned about the Abar Benel. They don't quote him by name, but the Ramah, the Shach and Taz, they seem to be concerned with Timtum Halev, even in a case when it's mutter to eat. So the Chazir says, what's the answer then? What happens if you ate treif when you were younger or even when you're older? So Timtum Halev, how do you stop Timtum Halev? I wonder if there's if it's covered over ohip or not, or in your private. How do you stop this Timtum Halev? So the Chazanish writes that he basically quotes the Rambam about tshuva ani acher. So to speak, you do a tshuva shlema, you become, so to speak, like a new person, and there basically there is tshuva, there is ways of, by working on yourself, etc., you can get rid of this timtum alev. But to Gersh's point before, there's an interesting B'nai Yissaschar. The poskim talk about the question you mentioned. Let's say, I get it many times. Usually it's a woman calls me up on the phone and it's a Kashrus question, and in the case I tell you it's fine. Let's say a little milk fell in the chicken soup. Whatever the case was, I say it's kosher. I guess the volume batul b'shishim. But she usually said, "What do you mean? I already threw out the soup. I'm asking about if I could keep the bowl or not." But and then they'll say, "What would you eat it?" Every time I tell someone, I tell them it's. I said, so it's a good question. I definitely would eat it. In fact, and I tell them the B'nai Yissaschar I'm about to tell you. So there's a whole. Some posts can bring down the question. Let's say bitul b'shishim. So some bring down, some poskim, some achronim bring down. Yesh omrim shemutter lahachmir. That some want to say, it's bitul b'shishim, but if you want to be machmir, you can. So other poskim go crazy. Are you kidding me? That's heresy. That's apikoursis. Chazal said it's batu b'shishim, and that's it. There's no room to be machmir. In fact, it's also to be machmir, because that's the halacha. So they say over B'nai Yissaschar that in fact he takes it to the next step. He says, this is, if you have Isser Nafoch Leheter Chasida Shetorah, if you have Isser turning into Heter, that's premium soup, you should serve it to the whole community. That's the highest level. But Makam Bali Tshuva of the Nain Tzadikin, so I'm just saying, so in terms of that, so obviously there is a tshuva, but they bring down to, so we assume it's not batul v'shishim robe, those are 100% kosher. It's not even like a question of being machmir. That's that we assume that, once the halach, like let's say Savik Daraisul Chumra, Savik Rabbanan Lukula, or let's say Svek Sveika, the question is there room to be, let's say on a Svek Sveik or a Savik Darai, is there room to be machmir or mako? Obviously, when a Savik Darai, well, Svek Sveik or Savik Daraisul Chum, you're not being mako. But let's say a Savik Rabbanan Lukula or a Svek Sveika, is there room to be machmir? So in the Sheiv Shemaitz in the beginning when he talks about in the Sveika, so there's a whole famous Chakira on Svek Sveika, but it also ties into Savik Daraisa. What do you mean Svek Sveika is mutter? Is it a din in probability? Okay, so it's 66%. Okay, so you go bust the road. Is that why? Well, no. Svek Sveika, that's the cloud. If it's a Svek Sveika, so B'Torah is Vada. It's not B'Torah is Suffolk. It's probably okay. And the halacha says you can rely on the probability. It's B'Torah is Vadai. So, my nafkamina. The nafkamina is the room to be machmir on a Svek Sveika. Like, do I want to be from? And so many poskim say no. Obviously, it depends on what the Svek Sveika is and that. But in terms of, as a general rule, I always give and it works because it works in both directions. Like, I like giving you the example. Let's say you walk into a store, I won't mention the name because of my example I'm about to give, and you go to the kosher section, and it's 50% off, big sale on top. You get closer grade, you pick up the rib steaks, and this is Suffolk Da'araisa. Got mixed in with so we have a 50%. So the guy's feeling, he's hungry, he just came back, he hasn't eaten in a long time, he's feeling lucky, he says, I'm just going to go for it. And he barbecues up and he has his nice ribs and steak. And of course, after he finished eating, whether it's 5 minutes or now, he starts wondering, well, maybe I shouldn't have had that steak. And it's on his mind for the rest of his life. And then after 120 years, he can't wait. When he's waiting in Beis in Shamala, he's waiting in line. He calls the malach over quickly. I gotta know on this date. I ate this. Tell me if it was. He says your lucky day. It was kosher. I was so happy. So he goes into the Hakadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. And we have the scales. So assuming we have scales there. So God puts on the Avera scale. No, he said, God, no. I spoke to the angel. You're putting on. That was actually kosher. No, God says, no, you don't get it. When we said Savik Daraisul Chumra, that's B'Torah's Vada. It's not like we're being machmir, it's your choice. Once the halacha paskins, it's usher, it's usher. And similarly, Savik Rabbanan L'Kula, I don't care if it was trade. This fits into, there's apparently no Timtum Alev when we're talking about those column, but Savik Rabbanan L'Kula, that gets into an interesting machlokas in terms of, whether it's the halachic reality, or because it's interesting, machlokas, so I was going to get to maybe, but I'll throw it in now in case I don't, because let's say by the bugs issue, which I was going to come to, there's a whole discussion, I think it's a machlokas, the Maram Shik and the Chai Adam, they were talking about, let's say there are bugs in the water, like the 3 cities in America that made the lottery are New York, Boston, and Seattle. I mean, they made the lottery. If you're over like 10,000 people, always you have to filter your water. But in New York, Boston, and Seattle, they don't filter it. They put in some other things. It's not a safety issue. The bugs are healthy. It's a halachic issue about eating the bugs. So that's why you had the whole issue. I don't know, a year or 2 ago, 3 in New York with the copepods, whatever they call it, the bugs in the water. So we'll come back to that. But there's an old machlokas. So the Maram Shik and the Chayam talking about a little bit on Yantif. could you, let's say, use, perhaps maybe it's putting the Brita, or you let a filter, something, you can't actually put the filter, might be an issue. Let's say you have something, let's say the Brita water, and you pour it in. So is that borer or not? So the Chai Adam writes no. He says because even though halachically the bugs are usher, but the bottom line, if it's normal water, even Goyim eat the water, that's not considered psoas regarding borer, and there's no problem of using this on Yontiv or Shabbat. And the Maram Shik says no way. If the halacha says that the bugs are usher, so that is considered by you pouring out, as assuming that's what the filter is keeping the bugs out. So that is considered. I'm just pointing out. We'll come back to it, but in terms of what's the reality, it's
I don't understand. Goyim don't want that in their water. Why isn't that considered?
No, the Goyim
No, you would drink it anyway.
No, Goyim. If you weren't Jewish, you would be drinking the water. No one.
Anyway.
It's not so.
It's not so. It's normal water, except Pi Halacha, it's a problem. And so therefore, the Chayas, that's not a problem of Borah. That if normal people would drink the water, I'm saying I'm just bringing it to how do you psoas? You have the Maram Shik taking pure halachic world. That's it. And Chai Adam says no. So we'll see. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But over here,
you have strawberries and blueberries. And if you don't like the blueberries,
no, that's something subjective, and that's a different question. That's a question if it is. Here is a question of people. Would you view the fact if halacha says this is us or these bugs, but no one even knows they're there, and everyone drinks them normally, and now the only reason I'm separating them is because halacha says I can't have bugs, is that considered Lagabi Yontiv and Shabbos? So specifically, they're talking about the borer issue. Can I pour, let's say, a Brita? They don't use the example of Brita, but could you pour something that's going to keep the bugs out so you could drink the water?
The assumption is that my only aversion is the halachic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone's mode that if it's a health, then it is borer. That's for sure. The question was, it's a halachic issue. In fact, that was the famous. I think in the 1500s. When Yosef Cairo, many people, many Gedolim lived in Svat and not in Yerushalayim. So there's a reason Al Pi Nister and there's a reason Al Pi Nigla. Why didn't they live? Why weren't they living in Yerushalayim? So the reason Al Pi Nigla was that they have a whole. It had to do, and that's why they started the smicha there. That a whole tradition. The Gemara says that we say we're going to makabel pnei Mashiach. I think the Gemara uses makabel Eliyahu, but same thing. So they have a whole cheshbon how you have to figure out the last place the basin met, and that's where the basins they they figured it out according to their own cheshbon. It was out over there in Svat, so they figured we'll reconvene, we'll make a basin, we'll have smicha. So Eliyahu is going to come. That's Al Pi Kabbalah why they moved to Svat, because they figured out that's the spot. But Al Pi Nigla, the reason why they moved is because there were bugs in the water. Kosher bugs, apparently. There are kosher bugs, by the way, but you got sick from them. So you couldn't drink them when they were kosher, but you actually physically got sick. Everyone in Yerushalayim. That's why Al Pi Nigla, they moved because they couldn't drink the water, because they couldn't live there because they were drinking the water. It wasn't a kosher issue, it was actually sick issue, so they moved to, but yes, I don't know. Maybe they have a higher tolerance, so,
But the last place of the Bezdin was Tiberia, not Sfat.
Yes, they discussed that, they have a cheshbon, that's why they were in those areas also, but I'm saying, or in I think some say it was the Gali, I guess the Kabbalists could discuss exactly, but I think Gali, they discuss different places where they think, at least they want to be close to. I'm just, wherever the exact spot is, I'm sure historians could debate it, or, different, Gedolim.
But there's no water usually. There is no water. The water comes from Beis Lephem.
Okay, so over the year, I've been saying, but that's what that's
springs.
What?
The springs.
Spring Gihon? That's a small spring. That's why they built the aqueducts from Berchot Shlomo, because there wasn't enough water. There is no water.
Oh, that's why in terms of that.
Yeah.
But so they point out
cisterns.
So regarding the halacha, the Isser, it comes up, it's obviously the issue all the time now, but especially on Pesach with romaine lettuce, so there's always the issue of bugs in the lettuce and bugs anywhere. So there's an Isser deraisa to eat the bugs. The Simon and Shulchan Aruch, the Gemara Chuan talk about, not that we know today, I mean, some people claim the bugs in the, how they know, I'm not sure, but some people claim the bugs are, in the U.S., they claim those bugs are, the different heterim, what they use, and one is, they say that those bugs are the kosher bugs. How they know that, I don't know. But they point out that there's an issue of bugs, and there's a big chiddush of bugs being asur min Torah, because normally we have a cloud, something which isn't roy lachila, something which is nifso, it's only a din d'Rabbanan. It's not, or it's a lo kederach achilat. But the chiddush of shratzim is, even though it's not roy, and even though something which is not roy lachila normally is not something which is considered ochel, nevertheless the chiddush is, the chiddush at Torah is a biblical prohibition, and by definition bugs, or we assume, aren't something people people normally eat. So it's still an Isser deraisa. So they
Isn't the Isser deraisa only on a bug that crawls in the water?
Yes, so they get in. No, so again, to some bugs are permitted, and then you have some then you get into different. But
the vegetables are not.
Yeah, the ones
can't be deraisa.
And right, because it depends on where they think the bugs came from, or they believe in spontaneous generation or not. But which scored. But I'm saying is right. So there's a whole list in the Shulchan Aruch. It's hard to know exactly which ones are which, but there are categories of. So let's assume the non-kosher, for our purposes, if they're kosher or d'Rabbanan, there'll be less of an issue. But so in fact, so the halacha is, so let's say I can't see the bug. So then there's the poskim are right. The general assumption is only if I could see the bug. If I can't be seen by the naked eye. So let's say today the issue is that you have a black spot on a piece of lettuce. I'm making it, it could be on anything. And you can't tell by looking. You see a black spot, that's it. You have no idea what it is. You might have an idea because of, but it's a black spot, you don't know what it is. And so if it's not near it, you're not mechuyev to take out a microscope and then to see that if it has wings. If it's not moving.
People are telling me that the black spot itself is seeing you.
I'm going to get to that discussion now, yeah. But I've been saying is before this. So they point. So let's say they can't even see the black spot. Let's say whatever they see.
I think that's another risk.
You
see the black spot, but you don't see it as a bug, then you're not seeing a bug.
No, right. That's going to be that's going to be the machogas of Shlomo Zalman and the Chazon Ish.
Mm-hmm.
So and people. So I'll get to that in a minute. So therefore they point out. And this I'm giving a general cloud when the Torah has to be near your eye and you have to be able to see it. So let's say it's not just limited to bugs, it's a general cloud. As Rav Moshe writes by Hilchos Nida, let's say there's a spot, a color, and it's tiny, it's so small, and you can't tell, you can't tell if it's red. So you're not mechuyev to take out a microscope and see, and if you can't tell it's red by looking, then it's okay. Or for instance, like Rav Shechter always says over a story, someone came over to him and asked, the tefillin have to be square, ruah. So he said, are these tefillin good? He said, they look pretty square to me. So this guy was a dentist, and the guy said, no, I'm telling you they're not. I know because I work with tiny fillings every time. I know exactly how it's supposed to look, and these are not. So Rav Shechter said, basically your eyes are like a precision instrument. We don't have to care about the way you see it. And a normal person who looks this way, that's the way it goes. So there's a general rule. It's near, when halacha is halacha, the assumption is what an average normal person can see. It's not. You don't have to use a precision instrument and come down. That's the halachic reality of whatever a person can see. So that's one thing. So the question is what's considered seeing? In other words, the Rav Shechter says over. Because people used to drive him crazy with the bugs all the time. So the guy came to, I'm not sure who it was, some Kashrus guy, he said, here's a piece of lettuce, do you see any bugs? So he looked around, he said, stop driving me crazy, there are no bugs on here. So he said, okay, wait. So the guy took the lettuce, he put it on his palm, I guess he warmed up the lettuce, whatever, and then all of a sudden, he sees like this black spot, he saw something, he saw stuff moving, so obviously he couldn't see with his eyes it has wings and that, but he knew obviously it was moving because Tosfos quotes from Rashi, a sheretz means either you could see it or sheratz, that's what it's called, sheretz. If you could see, if it's something which moves, so either you see it that it's a bug, or even if you don't know it's a bug, but if it's moving, then obviously you have to, you know it's a bug. So he said, so the question is, what happens? So if you go to, let's say, New York, the reservoir where the bugs are, so one guy he took a pail of water, and he took it, and he brought it to Rav Shach, and he said, look, and if you look at it, he said, it looks like a fish tank. Like you see all these things floating around in it,
Under what, Mike?
No, just regular. He says, if you go in the reservoir, he says, he took out, he put it into a small bucket.
Tap water?
No, not tap. He actually went to the reservoir. I don't know.
Central Park.
He went wherever it is. I'm not sure. Maybe he said he got it from the reservoir, whatever he meant, wherever it is exactly, and he brought him a bucket of water, and it looked like a fish. This is Rav Shachta talking. It looked like a fish tank, because obviously you see the bugs in it. You can't, again, assuming those bugs are usher, you can't eat them. He says, but let's say, but the only reason you see them is because they're moving. You can't actually see any, they're tiny. So there's no way you would know, it's only because they're moving. If they weren't moving, you wouldn't even know they're in there. So therefore so what happens, so obviously if you take this water and then you cook it, and you cook chicken, you cook something, obviously you're not going to see the bugs anymore because they're dead, they're not moving. So poskim say that's the problem. You can't just, like someone saying, you know what, I'm not going to look at, the person knows his soup is full of bugs, but I'm not going to look when I eat. I mean, that's ridiculous. That doesn't help you. In other words, the point being, if you know there were bugs and now they're dead, they're in there, that doesn't help you. So obviously that doesn't. But the issue with the water, the time when the water gets in the reservoir into your tap, they're dead already because they go through all those different pipes. They're going is like, very high level mileage, and that basically they're all dead when they come into your house already. So you don't see them. So the question is, let's say in the case of you see a black spot, it's not moving. So is that considered seeing it? So Rav Shlomo Zalman, who is known for his common sense, people say he got common sense from the Gemara, but so he goes through. He says, Tosfos quotes Rashi, Sheratz. He said two ways. He's like, I can make it out it's a bug, or Sheratz. If it's not moving, and I can't tell it's a bug, then it's mutter. However, he quotes at the end of the tshuva, I think in the Mincha Shlomo. However, in the house of the Chazon Ish, they wouldn't eat something like this or something like that. He writes. So what's Chad and Rav Shlomo Zalman? So Pashtus is he's going on. I'll cover to the Chazon Ish. He quoted the Chazon Ish, and maybe he didn't eat it anymore, but he basically thought it was mutter. But he's just mentioning the Chazon Ish. So many contemporary Svarim like quoting Rav Shlomo Zalman saying, no, Rav Shlomo Zalman retracted his shita. He quoted the Chazon Ish and he held it us. I mean, that's how many. But I think it's a machlokas to Shlomo Zalman and the Chazon Ish on whether a black spot is considered Nirakayin or not. So that's one issue. And then there's the issue also in terms of how, because we know al pi halacha there's halacha of rows. So minat Torah 51% is if you have a row of even a 51%, so it's 100% kosher. So, however, there's a concept of a miyad hamatzai. There's a concept of midrabanan. Minat Torah, if it's less than 50% chance that there's a bug or something, which is same thing with shatnez and suits. Minat Torah, if 51% of the time these suits don't have shatnez, it's 100% mutter. There's a chiyuv b'dika on a miyad hamatzai. There's a din d'Rabbanan that if, let's say, I'll get to it what a miyad hamatzai is, but on a miyad hamatzai, what percent of miyad hamatzai is, then there's a chiyuv b'dika midrabanan on a miyad hamatzai. So, for instance, obviously depends. I've had many suits in my life. Only one of my suits have had shatnez, and that was it figures that from Germany, a boss suit.
They all do.
Oh, they all bought it? Okay, so that was the first, so I only had one, and I never got another one, but they checked and then, they took it out. But actually, there was another time I had shotness, but it was out in the Catskills. It was like one of the malls there, along 20 years ago or longer, and there was a big CO, and it said no returns. Okay, but it was like a sports jacket. It was a sports jacket I liked. It was, I don't know, like $20, $10. Even then, that was cheap. So I said, okay, great. And then when I take off the 50, whatever, I see the ingredients, I see the materials, and it says wool, linen, and it says a big sign, no returns. I went back to the guy, I explained to him, he didn't really get this. He just religious. He let me switch it anyway. But for $20, I really wasn't going to worry anyway. But generally, again, maybe in the Eastern Europe, people they'll know which suits generally. The real Minat Torah, there's nothing to talk about. And if it's not a miyad hamatzoi, you don't even have a chiyuv b'dika to check. I think the minhag is we check even. People check all the suits for shadnis. I'm not saying to change the minhag, but strictly speaking, if it's not a miyad hamatzoi, you don't even have a. So certainly, what I'm saying is, if you haven't got them checked yet, you can wear them, and then you get it checked. If let's say you need the suit and some reason it didn't get checked, you certainly could wear the suit and get it checked. If it's a case where it's not even a miyad hamatzoi, there's not even a chiyuv b'dika. The same thing if you have the vegetables, whatever the case, if 51% chance that it's no bugs or whatever, then Minat Torah it's mutter. If it's a miyad hamatzoi, then you have a chiyuv b'dika midrabanan. How much is what is a miyad hamatzoi? So if they quote the Mishkanas Yaakov Karlina, he says a miyad hamatzoi, he says it's 10%. That 10%, that in other words, if let's say 10% of all these suits have shadnis, so then I have to have a chiyuv b'dika midrabanan. If it's only a 6%, so then I have no chiyuv b'dika. The minhag is to do it, but you don't even have a chiyuv b'dika midrabanan. And same thing, it's not just on suits, on anything, on vegetables. So if you have less than a 10% chance that bugs are in these things, it would be not even midrabanan. There won't be a chiyuv b'dika. So they point out there's a whole discussion how much if it's 10% where does he get it from? Because there's where's the miyad hamatzoi come from? There's the Ramban in Chulin. He quotes a medrash that they talk about Adam Harishon, that he couldn't wait. He made him, he couldn't wait. He ate from the Eitz Hadas, and we wait. We do shchita, we do other things, and then they point out that I think they quote a medrash. Who's going to be the one that when the Mashiach comes, whatever, it's Yesam Eisim, you're going to dig up Adam Harishon and take the upper off his eyes. He couldn't, he's born, he couldn't see for, the trashing a little bit. And then they get into to the Ramban over there quote about there's 70 different types of trephas in an animal, but we only check one out of the 70. The other 69 we don't check, and the only one we check is on the tzirchas on the lung. And the Ramban says, why do we check that one? Because that's the only one which is a miyad hamatzoi. So it comes from the Ramban and Chuman that if a miyad hamatzoi, so the question is, what are the percentages? So the Mishkanas Yaakov says 10%. The Rav, when he was a Rav in Boston, he used to, and this is when Kashrus, many years ago, so he used to look for every hectare in the book. This is the Rav talking, not me. He used to look for every hectare in the book, and he said he got it up to 14%. He said in this slaughterhouse, 14% had tzirchas on the lungs. That's with every hectare. He used to make fun of this other slaughter. He always claimed to be kosher, not glad kosher. He used to make fun of the other slaughterhouse in Boston that claimed to be glad kosher. He said, yeah, the glad treif. They claim in the makbir for glad kosher, they're telling me they have 10%. I have every cool in the book. They probably don't even know about these coolers, and I still get. So he didn't believe. He thought they were a bunch of phonies. But so, and I think when the one who wrote the Shmir Shabbos, the Hilchas, Rav Norberg, yeah. So when he was younger, he used to travel out to. I think South America, South Africa, somewhere. And he used to, or maybe Argentina, but they did the meet there. I guess the air is a little better there. So he said it was only 5% there. And I think Rav Elyashiv says 7% in Eretz Yisrael. So again, see, that's being machmer, because the question is, what is the definition of a miyad hamatzai? So, by saying, so he said you can't 5%. He said it's bad enough, good enough. Rav Elyashiv said 7%. There's no way we don't have to go by what the Ramban saying. Whatever the amount is on tzirchus, that's what a miyad hamatzai is. So the standard is 10%. The Rav claimed it was 14% in the butcher shop in Boston. But whatever a miyad hamatzai is, anywhere from 5% to 14%. So if it is a miyad hamatzai, you have a chiyuv b'dika to midrabanan to check.